Today we're checking out some brand new updates to some of our favorite Mandela effects. Our first update is how so many people remember Darth Vader in The Empire Strikes Back saying, "Luke, I am your father." This one has been a hotly contested Mandela effect for years, and today I bring you two pieces of residue that agree with what all of us remember. The first is this Empire Strikes Back storybook from 1980. In this book, the quote is exactly what everyone remembers, "Luke, I am your father." And that's not all. In the Marvel comic book adaptation of the movie, Darth Vader also says the line, "Luke, I am your father." So the way it goes now, the original movie's line that everyone remembers changed. We all remember it one way, but it's not that way. But all of the related Star Wars media still keeps the old one that we remember. I don't know about you, but I find this absolutely fascinating. And this will be a common thread in today's video. Here's an interesting detail regarding Toy Story and the Mandela effect regarding Woody. Many people remember Woody, voiced by Tom Hanks, as saying, "There's a snake in my boot." I know this for a fact myself, because I had a Woody toy as a child that you could squeeze and he'd say that line. Well, as it goes now, the line is, strangely enough, "There's a snake in my boots," which doesn't make any sense. There's one snake in both of your boots, I guess stretched out in each boot.
There's a snake in my boots. There's a snake in my boots.
But in an interview with Jim Hanks, he mentions this Mandela effect specifically, meaning even the voice of all those toys and games remembers this line differently than it apparently is. Check it out.
I don't know how many times I've said there's a snake in my boot, which actually, it's snake in my boots, which is weird.
And on top of all of that, there's another clip of Tom Hanks himself saying it's actually, "There's snakes in my boots," which isn't correct at all, because in his version, there's multiple snakes in both of his boots.
Got a vocabulary that is stored in a wire in his chest, and he's got a pull string on it, and he says things like, "There's snakes in my boots," and
I find it just so weird that both voice actors for Woody, as well as everyone else, remembers this line wrong. So what do you remember? The Fruit of the Loom Mandela effect is one of the most popular ones there is. Seemingly everyone remembers their logo having a cornucopia, and yet it has never been proven. There have been pranks made with the cornucopia, fake t-shirt tags, photoshops, but never any real proof. And today, unfortunately, I'm not going to drop the bomb that reveals the evidence we've all been waiting for. I don't have it. Yet. Outside of that one weird trademark detail, here's that clip. First up is a trademark filed in 1973 and granted in 1974 by Fruit of the Loom. This trademark was in fact for a deodorant. Now here is the interesting thing about this trademark. It has a piece of art attached to it, which I'm showing you now. I'd like you to analyze this piece of art right here as I read the literal description for the trademark. Berries, grapes, alone or in bunches, apples, baskets, bowls, and other containers of fruits, including cornucopia, horn of plenty. Now why would Fruit of the Loom, a company who swears to have never used a cornucopia in any of their artwork ever, claim a cornucopia in their trademark? I don't know about you, but I find that pretty strange. The trademark was eventually canceled, which you might think, oh, they realized the mistake by adding a cornucopia in the description and then canceled the trademark right away. But that's not what happened. This cancellation took place in 1988, a full 15 years after it was first registered. Here is a Vermont newspaper clipping from 1981 in the Rutland Daily Herald, talking about how the class of 1971 had created a Fruit of the Loom parade float. And that float apparently had a huge horn of plenty on it, aka a cornucopia. Pretty weird for the class of 1971 to have made a float that included a detail that has allegedly never ever existed. Yet somehow in the 70s they knew about it, in the 80s they talked about it, we grew up with it, and here we are in 2026 still talking about it. Weird, right? Looking deeper, I found another newspaper from that time, the Brattleboro Reformer, also in Vermont, that wrote about the same event. This time talking about the class of 1971 and how they made a Fruit of the Loom float which featured a large cornucopia. So what's going on here? Two objective sources both said that the same class of 1971 had created a Fruit of the Loom float. One said a horn of plenty, and the other directly said cornucopia, both of which are exactly what we said the logo used to have on it. Now here's the crazy thing. The Fruit of the Loom company says that the cornucopia never existed, but I wasn't alive to see this float, or hear about it, a decade later in a paper in 1981. I've never lived in Vermont. So how in the world have we all heard of the same alleged false memory? It had to come from something, right? The exact same thing, all across the country, all across the world. That's incorrect. Try to make this make sense. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Up next, I have a quick Pokemon Mandela effect update for you, and it's regarding Pikachu with his black tip tail. That so many of us remember, me specifically. My childhood was Pokemon. I remember the black tip tail. I've gone through all the old stuff I have, the toys, the stuffed animals, the posters, the little figures, the games, everything. I can't find it. Other people can't find it. Then I came across this photo online, which is really interesting because you can tell this is one of those cheaper Pokemon toys. I'm not saying it's necessarily a knockoff, but it looks like something you'd get out of a vending machine. If you look at its tail, it's very obviously a black tip tail Pikachu. That is the tail. I remember at least the tip. There's supposed to be some zigs and some zags going on. This could have been a faked one, possibly. I found this image super interesting and I thought you'd like it too. So what do you think? Do you remember Pikachu having a black tip tail, or was it always a little bit of brown at the bottom? Okay, I've got a fascinating update regarding the Lion and the Lamb Bible Mandela effect. The Bible verse in question comes from Isaiah 11, 6 and 7, which describes a future peaceful kingdom where the lion dwells with the lamb. But the verse doesn't actually say that. It actually says the wolf dwells with the lamb. There is no Bible verse that talks about a lion and a lamb, which has led to massive confusion for the people that believe, the people that don't believe, and the people that have just casually heard this in passing. Today's update comes from a book called The Handy Book of Literary Curiosities by William S. Walsh. In this book, it talks about the lion and the lamb misquotation, and how even clergymen themselves kept saying it wrong. But here's the thing. Any book can talk about that. I can write a book today that talks about how strange this is and how people misquote it. But this book was published in 1892, meaning this Mandela effect has been known about for over 130 years, apparently. What? If this was known about 130 plus years ago, how in the world is it still being misquoted? Why are statues of a lion and a lamb being crafted? Why are paintings of a lion and a lamb being painted? It doesn't make any sense. How did so many of us not just hear this incorrectly over the years, but never actually hear the actual version of a wolf and a lamb? We only heard the wrong version, we never heard the right version. How's that possible? Honestly, it's baffling. We know the Mandela effect dates back years and years, but this one is over 130 years old, and we're still making the same mistake over and over again. It makes me wonder what else has changed. And how far back does the Mandela effect actually go? Next up are a ton of updates and new residue for the Berenstain Bears Mandela effect. First up is a book that says multiple times Berenstain Bears. This photo was taken back in 2018. This is what is considered the correct spelling now, and apparently has always been. But the sticker on this book says something else, Berenstain Bears. Look at that. This Mandela effect freaks me out the most because I, like many of you, grew up calling it the Berenstain Bears, not the Berenstain Bears. And residue of the way it used to be, or at least what so many of us thought it used to be, can be found everywhere. This is the first of many I will show you today. Next up is this incredible photo. The claim behind it is that this person used to work at a bookstore from 2012 to 2020. A few years ago, they were going through old signage and they found the top sign. As for the bottom sign, that was the current sign, at least when they were working. So how do you explain this? They just spelled it wrong in the way that so many of us remember it being? I guess everything in the world is just a coincidence. The old sign is what we all remember and was replaced with a sign of what it is now and apparently always has been. I hate to say it, but I'm feeling kinda gaslit over this change. Here's my favorite update of this video because it's so compelling. Here's a Berenstain Bears Learning Lesson CD. On the cover, it says Berenstain Bears, which is how it has always apparently been spelled. But when you flip the disc over, that's where the magic happens. Written on the inner rim of the disc is Berenstain Bears, the spelling that so many of us remember. So why? How? How does a disc spell it correctly on the front, but then incorrectly on the back? It's as if everything changed, but these small details that weren't noticed, they stayed the same. That's what makes Mandela effect residue so interesting. Why? Why did this one little thing not change, but everything else did? I know this is hard to bear, but that's not all. Look at this VHS tape of the Berenstain Bears Learn About Strangers. Looking over this, everything seems to be in order, right? It says Barenstain 3 times on this cover, so why am I including it? Well, everything looks normal, until you flip it on its side. Look at that. Berenstain Bears, with an E. Flip it around again, and it's back to an A. For something that has apparently always been Berenstain, it's interesting how often it actually isn't. I mean, this Mandela effect has so much residue, it's getting ridiculous. It almost feels like it's gonna flip-flop. So who knows, maybe Berenstain will be the weird one that some of us vaguely remember for a couple years, and Barenstein is what it's always been. Do any of you have any Mandela Effect updates you'd like to share with me? I'd love to hear them, and maybe I'll talk about them in a future video. Be sure to check out my Patreon for over 35 exclusive videos, link in the description. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, never stop searching.